This week on London Real, we have the photographer, director, and CEO of Creative Live, Chase Jarvis.
You don't have to be better, you have to be different. Take a picture that no one else in the world could take. If it's of the Grand Canyon, then you have to put your personal filter on it. I'm also attacking the concept that you're either an artist or you're a business person. The world is full of super talented people who do nothing. If you win, then it's really hard to criticize.
London Real presents Chase Jarvis, Raw and Uncut.
Everybody has dreams, and the only thing that you could do wrong is to not follow them.
This week on the show, we have Mr. Chase Jarvis. Now, Chase has been inspiring me at London Real Studios for the past 4 years. I remember watching his black and white episodes that he would stream live from Seattle, Washington with his big name sponsors, and I was like, wow, if Chase can do it, we can do it. I've been following him. I've been following Creative Live, which is the company that he helped found and now is the CEO of. I've been watching his interviews, his tips. He shoots photographs and video for people like Serena Williams, major stars, snowboarding companies. Chase he's just a groundbreaker when it comes to really promoting independent photographers and videographers and the whole idea of really building a business around your own creative work. So I was absolutely honored that Chase came by to the studio. We connected to him via Twitter, via you London Reelers that let him know he was in town. He was like, Brian, my Twitter blew up when I landed in London. I'm so impressed and amazed. And he literally made time to walk over from a conference he was at with Virgin on stage, I think with Branson, and he came over to our show. So super honored Chase was there. I hope we captured it all in beautiful camera work for him. Our videographer Luis has said we should do this episode in black and white in honor of Chase, so we'll see if that comes off. But just want to say thanks so much for him. Also, Creative Live is an amazing company, and they do all sorts of amazing educational videos that go really deep, as far as you can go really granular on what you want to learn about, and they've created a whole page for us with their videos. So if you want to go watch any of our former guests like Tim Ferriss, Ryan Holiday, Kelly Starrett, those are all on there in addition to more. Big fans of what these guys do, big fans of the educational space, and when Chase Jarvis does it, you know it's going to look great and be of high value. So super psyched he came on. We also got really deep about what it's like with Chase on his journey, how he's found meditation to really be changing his life, what it's like to be the CEO of a company that's raised $30 million in financing from the big boys in San Francisco venture capital. This is no joke. So big honor, love Chase, and I think you're gonna get a lot out of this episode. So please enjoy. You know, a lot of people have been asking me, Brian, what's the London Real Academy? Well, it's a secret group of the most hardcore London Reelers around the world who get together and build better versions of ourselves. It's about 1,000 members, and we meet at the studios up here in Shoreditch every 2 weeks. We have live calls, live webinars, chats. We have our own social network inside the Academy. We get together in meetups all around the world. Our next one is in Amsterdam. We've got Atlanta, San Francisco, New York City, and of course London here every 2 weeks. And we push ourselves, we upgrade our peer groups, and we make better versions of who we are. I love it. It's charged me so much this year. I never thought this was coming. So if you want to be a part of it, here's a short video about the Academy.
The entrepreneurial journey, it can be a lonely road. I push myself in so many areas, but you know, you can't do it all yourself.
The thing about the Academy is, it's like, look, you have the ideas, you have the ability, you have the skill, and you have the sort of ambition for yourself. But when you have a group of people pulling you forward, it's so important.
Accountability is what's missing from most of the programs or any gurus or any internet mentor that I had before.
I wanted to get some accountability. I wanted to make myself accountable to a group, to you.
the reason we started the Academy is because I felt like we were doing these amazing talks. Like we'd have a Peter Sage episode or a Dan Pena episode or a Kala or someone, and you get super inspired, and then YouTube stops, and then you go back to your life and you don't make any changes. And it was just like, it felt like, what are we doing? If you're designing your life right, the good times are now. And in a few years, you'll look back and say, wow, that was amazing.
The thing about the Academy is it has so many different sort of layers to it. I think your web seminars are awesome. The way you broke it down and the style of your teaching is pretty awesome.
I like the feed. When I have to motivate myself, I kind of look at others struggling and getting over those struggles. So I actually follow daily the feed.
Best feature would be the sort of Facebook aspect of it, the social media aspect of it, as in creating a profile with your goals, your dreams.
Everyone's on the same vibe, and we may be at different stages in our journeys, but everyone's on the same page at the end of the day. Everyone's really trying to push themselves and building the best you. It really resonates with me.
And the fact that I'm committing a small amount of money and the fact that I'm actually trying to interact with those people means that I'm invested and means that I will keep it for the long run.
You have to be serious about yourself and what you want to achieve. And if you're serious about yourself, this is going to be such a fantastic platform.
London Real, sponsored by Bulletproof. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Chase Jarvis, who is a photographer and videographer known for a hyperkinetic style with an emphasis on sports and portraits, working for names like Red Bull, Nike, Apple, Lady Gaga, and more. You are the CEO and co-founder of Creative Live, the online learning platform that broadcasts live classes to an international audience of over 2 million people in 200 countries. You are also the host and creator of Chase Jarvis Live, a long-form Q&A interview show broadcast live in front of a Seattle audience that I've been watching for over 4 years and poaching your guests slowly but surely. You release iPhone camera apps, you curate art exhibits, you create books, you have a new video series, Chase Jarvis Raw. You're constantly creating. Chase, welcome to London Real.
Thank you so much. I'm going to record that and play that back to my wife. Just,
right.
Hey, honey. No, that's very, very gracious intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. London, I'm curious from an artist's eye, a photographer's eye.
Sure.
When you roll in here, what are some of the things you see and you're like, okay, that's different. I'd like to get that, or what do you feel as far as the city?
London has had, not to blow smoke like straight off the bat here, but London has had a huge impact on me as, I'll say, as an artist, but just as a human, actually. I grew up in a very middle-class family. I'm very proud of growing up the way I did. I didn't want for much, but I definitely, I've said this before in other interviews, I had Adidas with 4 stripes. I had like the Nikes with the upside down swoosh.
Right, okay, right.
Except for soccer shoes, the thing that I was actually talented at. My parents made sure I had the right stuff, but came up from a very, very middle class background. And yet, every year, my parents, and I'm an only child also, so every year, my parents packed up our family and came here for 2 or 3 weeks in the summer.
Oh, wow.
And I remember in the early 80s listening to like the London punk sound and mohawks at Piccadilly Circus and torn up leather jackets and the Clash and the Sex Pistols, and all of that like again, I was living in the suburbs of Seattle at the time, and my parents brought me here knowing all those things as an opportunity to expose me to that, and it had a profound impact on my desire to create stuff for a living. And I haven't talked at length about this, but I feel like I was a closet creative for a long time, and I say closet creative just because it was, again, I took, like, water takes the path of least resistance when I'm looking at the world, and at least in the place where I grew up when I did, it was very, to be creative was sort of, oh, the creative kid, like the weird one. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I want that. I'm going to be the captain of the football team, the captain of the soccer team, like skateboard guy, and just manage my way through the world without having to sort of confront these creative parts of me. And London was the part that actually sort of inspired it all. And then ironically, years later in life, it was the thing that helped set me free, that and the surf sort of skate punk scene in Southern California, where, wait a minute, these people, like these skaters, surfers, they are incredibly athletic, but there's art, there's design, there's music, there's sort of an attitude, a rebellious little sort of punk rock, I can do anything DIY spirit. London was the first place where I actually sampled that. And it ended up fusing with a lot of, like I said, the Southern California stuff, which is where I went to school on a soccer scholarship. But that is so much a part of why I'm sitting in this chair right here.
I would have never known
Yeah.
that. How old were you?
I don't think I've ever said that in an interview, actually.
Yeah. How old were you when you first came here?
Oh, probably sixth or seventh grade.
Okay.
10, 11, what are you, 6, 12? By 12.
Okay. And do you ever think that international travel when you were that young had...
And to be clear, we had no money.
Okay.
Like, not no money, but just the heat was at like 61 degrees in our house. It was like, boom, like you're cold, put on a sweatshirt. And yet we took these trips and not just like went here, saw all the highlights and went home. Like we have friends here. We stayed with families in the city and sort of lived it. And it made a huge impact on me, huge.
And was that to expose you, do you think?
I don't know. I should ask my parents. I think I know it was an element of luxury for them, and it was cultural. Now, my dad's a cop, or was a cop. My mom worked in administration at a biotech company. Both totally respectable positions, also very like working class. And so I think when you say you're going to Europe, this is a long time ago too, you're like, oh, we're going to Europe for a couple of weeks. It was a way to not have to keep up with the Joneses and to add real value, real cultural value.
Right. Talk to me about creativity. I was a science kid at school,
Yep.
So I was doing the science fair projects, and later I went and studied mechanical engineering, at MIT. And for me, when I chose, it was like liberal arts or science, and like you couldn't be a creative
Right.
science guy, like you couldn't really be an athlete creative either.
Yeah.
And I think I told myself through a self-dialogue that I wasn't an artist. And yet you've said that art is a subset of creativity, and I guess it's obvious to everyone we're all creative, but it's still...
But it's not obvious, though.
It's not obvious, right?
That's
okay.
I don't know. Reveal. I just walked 10 minutes from giving this exact speech at the Virgin Disrupt conference at just down the street here, just a few minutes ago, and it's not obvious. We still haven't broken that stereotype. These people still use the idea of right brain, left brain, which is you might have an inclination towards something, but that's also this, like you might have an inclination towards classical music instead of punk rock. Everybody is creative. I mean, mechanical, like the wheel is mechanical engineering plus creativity. Electricity, that's electrical engineering plus creativity. That's why we can why these lights exist. The chairs that we're sitting, everything was a picture in someone's mind before it was a drawing, before it was made. And it was made, that's the act of creating. And so like it's literally everywhere around us, maybe so much so that it fades into the background. But it's like that's literally one of the reasons that Creative Live exists. That's one of the reasons that I've made it a personal mission to talk about this stuff, because imagine the things that we are missing in the world because people don't associate themselves or what they do with creativity, or I can't do that, or that's not like me, or I wish I could, or I'd love to change that. And that's, again, part of the reason for Creative Live, part of the reason for my life journey. So it doesn't surprise me that you thought you were science. I thought I was science too, because I happened to be good at math didn't mean I wasn't creative. I was an only child, so had no, like it was play out in the backyard solo or with one friend or whatever, and then sit at the adult table. And yet I got good grades and did fine in math and science because I was told, oh, you have aptitude, you should really do more of that. And that took me so far. I can't say off track because everything happens for a reason, I believe that, but it took me, $50,000, $100,000 in student debt. It took me years off the plan of what I had in mind for myself, trying to live everybody else's dreams of what I should be. I dropped out of medical school, quit a PhD in philosophy. How many things do you want me to quit? Before I actually turned to photography, which is the thing that was always back here, but it was hard to make here turn into action.
What was it that made you decide it was okay to go with the creative Pete? Was it the first paycheck as a photographer, or when you first got the thrill and you were like, wait, I'm good at this?
That's a good question. It's sort of it was a 10-year process, and that's one of the, just hearing my own self say 10 years. It's like a dagger in my own heart that I was literally, and I'm a super confident person, reasonably overt, can say and do what I want to say and do. And if I'm having problems, and I had basically, I've talked about, growing up middle class, but I didn't want for anything. My upbringing was safe and healthy, and my parents are awesome, and I have a great relationship with them. And if it's hard for me, and under all those sort of perfect conditions, to say that I want to say and do that I want to live these dreams for myself, even though they might be different than what the world wants for me. How hard is it if you have challenge, if you come from a single family or single parent home, if you grew up in poverty, if you the list of things that could create extra challenge to that is just long as shit. It could go on forever. And if I struggled, that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to take, hey, anyone who's listening, the reason I'm sitting in this chair is to tell you that you can live your dreams, and that everybody has dreams, and the only thing that you could do wrong is to not follow them. And even if your dream is to get out from behind your desk and have an active job for a living, or even if your dream is to go the other way around, you've been outside working with your hands all your life and you want to come in and you want to program or write code, or doesn't matter. I'm not judging what the thing is, but I am, having done other shit for 10 years of my life that was for everybody else. And even when I say it, I said it again, and it just like a dagger. So that doesn't surprise me. I'm totally railing on this right now, maybe disproportionately so, but the fact that you liked science and that was where you were steered doesn't surprise me, and the fact that because you were scientific meant you weren't something else, those are stories that I'm trying to put to bed for. I managed to put them to bed for myself, although they never go away. The gremlins are always there, but I'm trying to put them away for as many people as I can.
I want to talk about Creative Live, but when I look back at your work and your career, it seems like the seeds, it's pretty obvious that the seeds for Creative Live were sown way back then. Mm-hmm. And you were always known as a guy that was transparent. You were filming the behind the scenes of your photography shoots pre-YouTube. Yeah. And you were
there was no such, the word didn't exist.
Right. People forget that.
I'm telling you, if you searched it on the internet, nothing came back.
Right. And yet you're still making video that's perfect for consuming on an online, video site that doesn't exist. So you're out there, you're also exposing tons of IP that the photography and film world are probably like, what are you doing, Chase? These are our secrets. Yep. But yet you're throwing it all out there. You're letting people know what's going on. And if you see that, you're kind of just saying, everyone should have access to this. Everyone should learn. And now in retrospect, when Creative Live comes up, you're like, oh yeah, that's just Chase kind of evolving. But was that a conscious decision you made back then, that I'm going to educate the world about what I'm doing? Or were you just a camera whore like me, and you're like, I love to express myself too? Was it conscious or somewhat unconscious?
I think, all of the things that you just articulated, A, are all true. B, there's a very simple narrative of like uncovering one thing at a time and following my gut. Remember, we're coming off the back of 10 years of not, or arguably more, 20 years, but 10 legitimate years where I was like at school pursuing other things or pursuing a career in professional soccer. I was on an Olympic development soccer team, and it wasn't not my wish, but it was like, oh man, oh yeah, if you can play pro soccer, that's what you do, of course. And I loved soccer, of course. But after 10 years of not doing that and deciding to listen to in here as opposed to out here, all of these things, they started to feel natural. Like I think it's called instinct, like you go with your gut. And as soon as I started listening to my gut, it was like I felt relieved. I felt relief, and it was like a thread. When as soon as you grab onto it, and you're like, oh, and then when you pull on that thing, of course you can now see this logical progression. But there wasn't a master plan. It was uncover one rock at a time and start just looking at the tea leaves and saying, all right, yeah, this is the right thing, and listening to in here.
Right.
And if anyone's listening to this instead of watching it, I'm pointing at my chest when I'm saying that.
And yet, by documenting all the behind the stuff, that changed your life, right? That's the strange thing. When you document it, it changes where you go.
For sure. And like it was a narrative that, in a really weird way, the self-reflexive sort of cycle when I was, because when I didn't set out to make these videos to watch them myself, but when you're uploading them to the pre-YouTube Google video world, you're like, okay, it's uploaded, and then you watch it to make sure that it uploaded correctly. And just the act of watching them, it felt like two things. One, I was setting apart, like I was taking risk, because as you cited just a moment ago, when I started giving away these trade secrets, and I started doing it because they weren't there when I decided I want to be a photographer more than anything. There were no resources. I was like, this is effed.
That was frustrating.
Yeah, I was like literally going to the library, checking out books and reading, and it was film. So I was taking a picture, writing down my exposure, taking a picture, writing down my exposure, and then developing the film, looking at the list of. It was just painful. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Where's the mentors? And like, oh yeah, you can have an internship and sweep the floor of the. Just wasn't into it. So that there were no other resources, and that there wasn't someone who was sharing that information. I mean, you do see the seed planted for Creative Live there as well.
Yeah.
But that there wasn't any information, and that I could basically real-time, sort of not real-time, vlog, blog, storytell my process of becoming a photographer it actually helped me. Again, that self-reflexive loop of when I'm watching the story about me, it's reinforcing that A, what I'm doing is good, and B, or meaningful to me, and that it's a thing that I'm putting out there in the world, because there's risk associated with it. And I was totally vilified at first, for sure, which, ironically, those folks ended up coming back and asking for a job.
But that was the photography and videography were like, okay, too much info.
Yeah, and yet, 2 years later, they were like, it was all the rage. The term behind the scenes video took off, and commonplace now, right? It wasn't all that long ago. We're talking in the 2000s, like 2004 or 5. 2004, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Blogger had just come out.
Yeah. You talk about increasing the stakes, and you said once you're good at your craft, then it's time to increase the stakes. And that resonates a lot with me, because you're like, I took risks on this videos. I went and did this. A lot of people if I look at the CV, I'm like, okay, San Diego State, played some football, some soccer football, now got some great clients as a photographer. A lot of people would sit on that lifestyle business and ride it till the cows come home, and you wouldn't be here talking to me. What causes you to up the stakes all the time? And then again in a live show, and then again in a big venture like Creative Live, where you're doing now hundreds of employees and VC and all that stuff. Why?
That's a good question. I wonder if it's genetics. I don't know. Maybe. I think it's a fair question. I'm actually wrestling with something right now, like doing some personal work and reflecting on. Like I have, sat in hundreds of interviews on television stations all over the world, and Brene Brown is actually one of the people. I don't know if you know Brene's work. She's amazing. I just had her on my show. Yeah. She's the only guest I've ever had on twice.
Yeah.
Because she's made a real impact for me, which is like a hard-charging type A male to have to sort of connect with that has been really, really powerful. But
And be vulnerable.
But looking back and saying, why do I have that sort of level of drive? Tim and I have talked about this a lot, especially up around transcendental meditation, which you just let me know that you practice as well.
Yeah.
Like, did you get here because you were aggro, hard charging, and if you meditate, are you going to give up your edge? Or why am I so driven to accomplish? And I think those are separate items, but let's go back to your original question, is like, what's the drive? Why do you do that? I actually feel like, if I'm as honest as I possibly can, again, never said this on any interview, I'm just literally processing this, like, this week, this month, this year. It was the way that I could make sure that nobody, if you win, then it's really hard to criticize. And if you're just dabbling and you're effing around, and then it's easier for someone to take shots at you. And again, this is totally in hindsight. I'm looking back and like, why are you so driven? And I think it's because if you're in first place, it's really hard to talk shit.
Right.
And I think that is perhaps one of the things that made me innovate. And I have a phrase that I've used a lot, which you don't have to be better, you have to be different. Yeah. It helps to be better. Like that's a thing. That's one axis, that it'd be good to be better at your craft than someone else. But it's not a zero-sum game. And if you can be different, there's room for a lot of different voices in a choir, or a lot of different instruments in an orchestra. And so it's a way that you can win. It doesn't have to mean someone else loses. But by winning, it's really hard to talk shit. And again, is that a safety mechanism? Is that a I'm still like, this is
only
real
child
time
thing. Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to unpack this whole thing in here, but it's interesting. I realize that that's one of the things that drives me. And Tim and I have talked a lot about this, actually.
Right.
Yeah,
I have tendencies to that, and I get really self-reliant. I think because, like, when I was a kid, it was just like I felt like I was on my own, so it was just like
Yep.
And so I'm so hard on myself. I think before other people can have a chance to be hard on me, that I'm always like, that's not good enough, that's not good enough. And then if I stay on top of myself so hard, no one can ever be as bad as me. Yeah.
All those things are true, and I think there's some messed up psychology in there that I don't know. Maybe it's preservation, maybe it's healthy and it's drive. I don't know, but it's indistinguishable for me. I at moments have remembered thinking like, the one way to be able to do the thing that I wanted to do is just to be relentlessly good, and not dissimilar to Gary Vee. It's very much around like outworking people too. Like the world is full of super talented people who do nothing, and everything. Like, how many episodes of this show you got?
Yeah, 320.
320.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard to mess or talk shit around someone doing 320 of anything. Push-ups, shots of bulletproof coffee, shows, like anything. Shots. Like, you do 320 of anything and it's substantial. And I think it quiets any sort of controversy or haters. And again, emotionally, that's not the place, that's not the message that I have in my head when I'm doing it. But I think there's something underlying about drive of just, I'll outwork you, and I'm only willing to risk it because I think I've got the right amount of talent and drive in this particular area. And like playing chess or jump rope, like I don't got either one of those, so I'm not going to pick it up.
Right.
Which is a sad way of being in the world too. So I got my plate's very full right now. I'm not going to pick up chess or jump rope anytime soon, but I think there's something there for us, type A folks to think about.
Yeah. Are you as driven now as you were, say, 10 years ago?
Yes, in a very different way. And a lot of this is to I've got to give a shout out to transcendental meditation. There's a part of me that questioned, wait a minute, if you're so mellow or you're so like calm, isn't your sort of aggro, hard-charging self the thing that got you where you are, and aren't you self-sabotaging by quieting this workhorse? And the reality that I've learned for me, I can't say this about everybody, but I can say it about myself, is that when your mind is quiet you know the right things to do, and you get the same results with half the pain and a lot less frustration, and the people around you don't feel your wrath in the negative way. They feel drive and success in a positive, nurturing way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought the same thing would happen with me. I was just telling you beforehand that, you know, I started TM in retrospect 5 months before I left like a 10-year job in banking. And I thought the same thing as well. And in my job, I had to like beat down people's throats in like real time to protect my territory, and I'm gonna get this deal. And I was like, okay, is this gonna change everything up? But I found that sometimes I was actually more clear, and sometimes I would actually call people out on things that I wouldn't before. So,
For sure. And you can do it much more gracefully.
Yeah.
And in sort of an empathetic, like real. I'm stepping on you right now, but like, yes, and for sure, I totally get it. And for me, it's a slow motion thing. Michael Jordan talks about like he sees the game in slow motion.
Right.
And for me, my life happens in slow motion when I'm really into my meditation practice, and the things that would normally or would otherwise get under my skin are now like, oh, I can observe that, and now here's how I'll respond. Or isn't life funny? That's what. There's certainly something there. I should be paying attention to that more often, and instead of like smashing your coffee cup or whatever.
Yeah, we've had a MMA fighter on here named Dan Hardy, who fights in the UFC or used to, and he also talks about like ayahuasca or a psychedelic experience. He says it doesn't change a person, it just allows you to understand yourself better. And so I find long periods of meditation can sometimes give me the same after effects as that. And I'm just like, okay, this is resistance today. I'm not gonna get angry. This is how, of course there will be a problem. Let's not get, and oh, this is you, Brian. Is it bad to be dominant? No, you know where you're going. Allow yourself, forgive yourself for being, it's okay to get things done.
Sure.
And it's okay to, but it's also not okay to do them in a bad way. So, yeah.
Meditation, man, it's powerful medicine.
And you did that 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think it might be either 3 or 4.
And have you taken a break from a couple weeks, and have you noticed, wait a second, I'm on the same time?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's days for me and I never intentionally take a break. Like, okay, I'm going to take a break from meditation now. It's when life happens, and you and I were talking earlier about just being on the road, and there were years that I was traveling north of 150,000 miles a year, and I still do about 150. But when just life happens, and I now have a routine that I'm pretty, like, I kind of don't leave the house. It's like brushing your teeth. Like, I will phone ahead and say I'm going to be late to make sure I get that morning meditation in. So I never intentionally miss it or take a break. But if life gets in the way, I occasionally will stumble or fall away from a couple of meditations. But I never miss more than, I track. That's one of the things I track. I track my meditations every day.
Right. Talk to me about being different, not just being better when it comes to art. I know you've studied like artists in the 50s and 60s and the 70s, and New York artists that took, graffiti into the gallery. You study a lot of European artists. I'm guessing you probably know who Banksy is and some of the things that he does. I don't know if you've seen his movie, Exit the Gift Shop.
Oh yeah.
That movie still is running a head game on me. Yeah. And Warhol and all that. What did you learn from those artists? Because a lot of people think artists just gets expressed and it's not a craft, but it seems like you take it as a craft.
Yeah, certainly the craft is critical. Like, you can't, I think skill in anything, there's merit to that. And so an artist should be able to draw, or a painter should be able to draw or paint, for example. A photographer, you need to get the exposure right. I'm going to trust that these cameras are focused properly. Like, that is, I call that the sort of the get in the door. That's, and
you hammer on about this. You must be good in your craft.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nothing else I say applies.
For
right?
sure, for sure. But when, like, assume that we're good at our craft, and then that's really where the game is sort of a weird word to use there, but that's where the game starts. And what are you going to do that is, because it's a noisy world, and again, I tend to step away from zero-sum games. Are not interesting to me. I'd rather make the pie much larger, and we can talk about that later. But being different, especially in the world of art as a professional, is the name of the game. And the thing that I have tried to emphasize in the past without being pedantic is, it's like, what can you do that no one else in the world could do? And I'm not talking about technically executed. I'm talking about technical execution plus a point of view. So what point of view do you have that would make someone stop and just stand in front of whatever you've made? And when I'm saying, like, I'm using art, but it could also be a Tesla, because that's a beautiful thing. It can be a product, it can be an iPhone. Like, what is it that when people see it, they stop and go, wow, that's powerful? And without a doubt, a key ingredient is that only you could make this thing, because that perspective is just different enough, or in the particular lies the universal. There's your particular experience growing up as a kid in this thing, and when this thing happened, and that's what you're painting or creating a song about or whatever. It might not be the exact thing that 10,000 or 100,000 or a million people experienced, but it's close enough that they say, wow, that's impactful because my life was close. Like, there's a thing where we're connected, and the phrase is, in the particular lies the universal. And if you tell your particular point of view really, really well, and again, that's not out here. This is like, who could take a picture of the Grand Canyon? Well, everybody could take a picture of the Grand Canyon. So I'm not saying don't take a picture of the Grand Canyon, but is there a thing that only you can do, given your skill set, where you are in life, the access to technology that you have, the connection to the earth? If you're a First Nations people and your family came from that region, do you have special insights, that time of day or plant life, or like there's like, what is different? What can you bring to the table? And I think that's a huge differentiator, is take a picture that no one else in the world could take. And if it's of the Grand Canyon, then you have to put your personal filter on it, because there's lots of people have taken pictures of all of the stuff that you see around here, but there's really only one person who's lived the life that you've lived and looked at the world through the lens that you look at it, that had your childhood experience, your, growing up with Star Wars or Boba Fett, or I don't even know. Like, so how can you incorporate Boba Fett into the photograph of the Grand Canyon? Now it's getting weird, man.
What makes a great picture?
I think two things. I think raw stopping power has to be a component, because otherwise no one's going to look. So there needs to be some component that makes you, if you're flipping through a page in a magazine or looking at art on a gallery wall, something has to attract you to that. And that's, in many ways it can be technical things, but it can be just, if not more powerful, that personal element, that when you're across the room and you see that thing and it makes you want to walk across the room to look at it. That's thing one. And thing two is, when you get there, the narrative is just like interesting. And it's not the full loop. There's a little gap in the loop. And that's that, like, I'm going to tell most of the story and then you're going to fill in the details. That's how we connect with one another through art. Again, in the particular lies the universal. So I'm going to take a picture of a person, and the picture is not necessarily just about that person, or may not be, but in that person's eyes are the eyes of a million people who have been there or done that or felt that way or felt close to that way. But you're putting your particular lens on that particular person.
And
stopping power plus a narrative that you can connect with.
Right, but don't complete the narrative. Let them go that last mile.
I like that. Like, to me, that's next level shit. Like, go ahead and complete the narrative. It's like, oh yeah, I can see this person's going from here. They're riding a bike from the grocery store to the yoga studio. It's interesting. It's more interesting if, like, you're riding the bike from the grocery store to the. Why is she riding down the dock? Why, like, what's at the end of the dock? Yeah. It's like there's just that little that part of our brain that desires to complete narratives. And that's an actual, like, that's a thing. We learn in stories. We remember in stories. And if there's a part of the story that's missing, your mind seeks to fill in that gap.
Right.
You're looking at me like I'm tripping you out right now.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. I was just thinking, when you said we all have our own perspective that we can bring to a photograph, I'm wondering if you were originally drawn to video, because when you get in front of the camera, we feel Chase. And Chase is this guy that used to be this guy, and now he's that guy, and he's obsessive about his craft, but he's also pretty cool, and he's also searching for a journey. And in a video, we can get that personality in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And that could take a photograph or a series and a whole written narrative, and we still might not get it.
Mm-hmm.
But is that what drew you sometimes to some of the videos, or even Chase Jarvis Live, where you were like, okay, I can I can really take you somewhere that's different?
That's an interesting question. Honest answer, heartfelt, right here. Like,
Yeah.
I can't say like the framework that you just put on that is very. It's not solipsistic, but it looks back at me like, why am I doing this? And there is an element of desire to share that is to tell a story. I think as a professional storyteller, as storytellers, it's one thing to tell a story to yourself, about yourself, pretty limited audience. It's another thing to tell a story for an audience, the greater good, or whatever your whatever audience you're trying to connect with. And so for me, a lot of this is about telling a story that I hope can resonate with someone else. Not dissimilar to a photograph. Video happens to be quite efficient for telling a lot of the stories that I want to tell. And yeah, I think that to me that is it's as much about, again, I'm looking inside at the things that I want to say, and then I'm trying to share those things out through a really effective medium. And video, like, I'm interested in using the right medium for the right message, and video happens to be a powerful one that I use for a lot of stuff.
Okay. You said once you get your craft sorted, that vision is everything.
Everything. You don't want to be a monkey with a finger. That's a commodity.
Okay.
You know, that's a. I remember when I really paid attention to forums. Not that I don't now, but I try not to, because I'm not interested in looking left and right at what everyone else is doing. I'm sort of interested in, there are a handful of people who I respect and want to, collaborate with or work with or admire. But generally speaking, I'm trying to accomplish something, make a point, say a thing, share a thing. And it's, give me the question one more time.
Yeah, just because you said once you have the craft, you said vision is everything.
So the last thing that I'm going to say it in the positive instead of the negative. That's where, like, I was going to go to the negative. The positive is I want to tell my story, and I don't want to shy away from my particular point of view. In fact, if you are just taking a picture that other people can take, you would be a commodity. If anyone can come and conduct this interview, then this interview suddenly becomes much less interesting. I'm banking that your audience and the people who are watching and listening to this right now are doing it because they've grown accustomed to you, your style, the guests, the type of guests, the questions you ask, and you have a point of view, you have a lens, a point of view that you bring to the party. That's the interesting thing. And if it's just a commodity, or you commoditize or commodify a thing, whether it's a photograph or a video interview series, there's nothing unique about it, then it's the value in my mind goes way, way, way down.
Okay.
It becomes utility as opposed to something more.
Okay. And how do you teach people to get vision?
That's the hardest question. Like, literally,
Right,
I've had
right.
that 1,000 times, and I think I believe that it's actually a meritorious question. I believe in the question. And the answer is just a shitty answer. It's a really hard answer, which is you have to actually just do a ton of work. Look inside, do work. Look inside, do work. Evaluate. Does this feel authentic? Because that's what you're really trying to do. It's just like, the term "be real" is over colloquialized or overused. Excuse me. But like, that's that sort of that combination of, you have to do it enough to realize that you have a voice in the first place. And people say, like, oh gosh, I don't know. Hey, the first 10 times you're going to do something, you're ripping off all the other people in the world. You're like, oh, this is how he did it or she did it. I mean, you already referenced Chase Jarvis Live. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, this dude sits down and he has 90-minute interviews. You understand, I started that 5 years ago. You know how many people are doing 90-minute interviews on the internet? Exactly 0.
I know.
Like, it's just because it was like, dude, the internet's meant for a 2-minute or 10-second snack. And again, that's a zig versus a zag, because and how I got there is like, I'm genuinely interested, and I can't get what I want out of this person, out of a Macklemore or an Adrian Grenier or a Tim Ferriss or a Tina Roth Eisenberg in 2 minutes. I need 2 hours or I could talk to these people like I'm talking to you for a long time.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonreelacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media, log in and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonreelacademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there, and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.